call. Okay, that's good. Is everything else okay? Can you guys see my, hang on now.
Yeah, but it's not in full screen mode.
Okay.
It's like shorter mode. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. With all the Zoom, I can never get used to this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay now?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but now the whole thing is covered. Hang on, give me a minute. I need to stop the share again. Sorry, guys. Okay. No, it's not working. Hang on. Ah, there you go. Let me move this to the side. And then hopefully we can resume the share. And play. Okay. All right. So today we'll be talking about two different things, quizzes and data collection. Okay. So these are two new things that we have put in place. And they have found the libraries chat quiz, so Smojo/chat/quiz and Smojo chat/formgen. So the quiz obviously is to do with the quizzes, and formgen is going to do with generating these long forms. So I'll start with the simpler one first. There's already, I think most of you, if you download the templates, you can see that there is a quiz. I think most of the templates have got quizzes, especially those in Bahasa, unfortunately. And it's not a quiz template as well, I think. Yes, there is a quiz template. And that contains the source code. The problem with the source code is that it's fairly limited. You can only use one quiz. And if there are any updates to the quizzes, you need to re-download the source code. It's a bit troublesome. So what we have decided to do is to actually spruce up the quiz system and put it into its own module, cloud module called Smojo/chat/quiz. And I've also improved I think previously only single quiz. Now you can have multiple quizzes as well. Okay. So how do I do this? Okay. So obviously it's to simplify quizzes, and we have now added support for multiple quizzes, but it doesn't include the topic. Okay. So I'll come to that shortly. All right. But you can just copy a sample from the docs. So we'll go through all of this stuff, but let me give you an overview first. So to define the quiz, there are two parts. The first one is to actually do the questions.m, or you can put it anywhere you like, actually. All right, but they need to follow a certain format. This questions, requires you to import the Smojo/chat/quiz cloud-word. Okay, and it should contain questions only. Okay. And I think someone's in the waiting room there. Okay. Now, so from the questions, you also then have the questions only contain the questions for the quiz, but to actually display everything, to actually, to do the control flow, so to speak, you have to have a micro topic for that, and that's usually called quiz.m. Okay, so this contains the templates plus some mems, actually one mem at least, that you need to use to keep track of where you are in the quiz itself. Okay, so the sample is available in doc, all right, using Smojo/chat/quiz. All right, so the questions follow a very simple format. There's a QQ, which is like a question. It's like, what is 1 + 2? And then there's an AA to give you one or more answers, like 2 or more answers, right? So AA 1, 2, for example, is the wrong answer. And of course, 3 is the right answer. And the right answer has got a little close parentheses at the end of it. So it's AA close parentheses. Okay, so that's how you know it's the right, or the system knows it's the right answer. Okay, and you need to end the question with a triple star. So that tells it that's done. It gets the system ready for the next question. You can have as many QQs as you want in a single question, and that all of those will just add up together. And the AAs also will just, you can have, in this case, I've shown 2, but you can have 3, 4, pretty much any number you like. Okay, so this is really the outline of defining a quiz. The documentation, as usual, Smojo/doc, and then use doc Smojo/chat/quiz. Okay. The documentation for this one is pretty important because it contains also a lot of sample code, which is not obvious. Okay, so I will stop the share now and maybe just give you a sample for this thing. Okay, where is Chrome? There you go. Okay, I'm going to just download the blind template for this thing. Okay, and I'm going to call it, rename it to 2, which is quizzes and data collection, right? All right. So as usual, I'll just clean up this a bit to make it easier to work with. Book, delete the fav. I'll leave the greetings inside. I don't need the wise part. Okay. All right. Actually, I don't need greetings either. But... Okay, so we're going to create, first of all, the import for the quizzes. So it's Smojo/chat/quiz. The first thing you want to do is always open up a tab so you can just call up the docs. Okay, and just run this. And you can see, you can ignore all of this stuff. The main bulk of it is here. So this gives us a sample for a very simple quiz, which contains 2 questions, right? So there's the first one asking what is the capital city of Malaysia, and the second one, where is Singapore located? You know, I used to work in this company many years ago, and the head office in the UK thought that Singapore was in China. So well, it's a funny factoid, I thought. Okay, so anyway, 2 questions here. Okay, you can see here, this QQ out here will append this line and this line together. And if you leave, let's say, a blank, like a QQ with a blank, then it will just create a space for you. Okay. And here we've got 3 alternatives for the capital city of Malaysia: Abu Dhabi, Addis Ababa, and of course Kuala Lumpur. And Kuala Lumpur is the correct answer, and it's designated with little closed parentheses on after the AA. Okay, there's no space here, it's just AA close parentheses. Now all of these things are all words, as you probably would figure out by now. Okay, so let's just copy this as a quiz, and so you can see here you've got 1, 2, 3 different options. Here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 options. Okay, I'm going to just copy off, and the quiz needs, I forgot to mention, the quiz now needs to have a name. So in this case, it's quiz : which is a word, then space, you know, the name for the quiz itself. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back into this thing here. I'm going to create a topic. I'm going to call it, let's say, I don't know, I call it country questions, countries, okay, or quiz countries. Really up to you. Let's call it question. QUESTIONS question.m, okay, for now. And then I need to also, so this only defines just 2 questions here. You can add more if you want to, but you also need to have the topic which processes this stuff, right? Which you can run. So, oh yeah, you need to import you need to include the questions as well. Oops. Anywhere here will do. So include questions. All right, and I want to look and see, and this is the last part, last bit you need to worry about, and that is this part here, which is the topic. So this is a sample topic. It's pretty long. Let's copy all the way down here. Okay, and I'm going to call this quiz.m. Okay, so I can go back here. Now, obviously, I need to like to do this. Actually, we can do it either here or here. I'll just put it out here, quiz. Okay, so as usual, the first thing you got to do is to just run a simple test. So it works. Yep. Okay, it sort of works. All right. But let's just publish it. Now, before you publish, let's look at the quiz itself. So there are only 2 templates. Oh, rather, sorry, 3 templates. The first one here brings us into the quiz, right? So when we type in quiz, it should bring us into the first question of the country's quiz. Okay, like that. So let's just try this here. Let me just delete this, and we can delete this, and we call it quiz, right? And let's test it out. So rather than publishing, we just try this first. And you can see here clearly, it's giving us this question, right? And we can, of course, select one answer. And let's try an incorrect answer, Abu. Right? You can type anything else, like, some rubbish here, and it will still be the wrong answer, right? Because it won't match. Let's test it out again. All right, and it says this big wrong thing, and it says next question. Now you can see here also, it gives you the right answer is Kuala Lumpur. Okay, so let's type in next question. Next, actually, anything else, we'll do the next one. Okay, and then you go on to the next one. Where is Singapore located? Right, in Mongolia, etc. And let's try the right one, which is Southeast Asia, and save that and test. Okay, and when you click on the next question again, in this case, it should give us and retest. It will just say you've come to the end of the quiz. Okay, and you can try this online if I publish it. It's published under what is it called again? This is called chat demo/bot. Okay, so let's just try this out here. All right, quiz. Right, so you can see here, I'm going to try Kuala Lumpur. Says great. Next question. And I say Mongolia, for example, right? And I say, ooh, wrong answer. Okay, next question, and I'm exiting. Okay, so the flow for this is actually not trivial. All right, so I need to explain what the topic is doing that we just copied and pasted, right? Because you need to, usually you want to amend this micro topic, the quiz micro topic. So let's go from the top to bottom, right? So there's a mem here called this question, and all it does is just to store the current question that is being asked in the quiz, because the chatbot is really giving you the HTML and JavaScript, and then it needs to remember where it was on the quiz itself. So this mem just stores that. Okay. When you kick off, so this template here kicks off the quiz itself. Okay. So when you type in quiz, it will first of all set the quiz to countries. Okay, and it initializes this question, oops, to 1. Okay, so this question is just a mem that we have out here, okay, to track the question number. All right, and then it just displays the question and it switches the room to answer. All right, so this is an open room. When you click on answer, it goes in, these rules will start to match. The question room is still closed because we don't have the key for question. All right. All right. So this question here, the system needs to know what question to display, right? So I've written some helpful words here where question is a word on chat quiz. Okay. So if you go back here and look at the docs again, you'll find a word called question. All right. There you go. But this question requires the question number, and then it will return a string. All right. So what I've done is I've just packed this in a more convenient form where I set this question. So in this case, this question was actually 1 at the start. So it will say 1 question, which is this one here, and then it will just display the first question on the quiz. Okay. All right, I hope that's clear. And then I just turn on the key for answer. And when I press one of the buttons, of course, it would just match the whole thing. And then it would check for the correct answer. The correct answer, correct question mark is this. Let's say this question with the number. And then what was the last thing the user said, and checks whether it's correct or not. All right, so this word correct question mark, this one here, I've just overwritten it, right, comes from the documents, where you can see correct question mark. It takes a number and a string. So this number is for question number what? This is the supposed answer. Is it correct or not? Okay, and it will return true or false based on whether this answer matches the answer of question number n. Okay, but I've just made it a bit more convenient for us so that we don't have to pass anything inside, just call correct question mark, and it'll do its thing and return a flag for us. Okay, so if it's correct, okay, it will print this stuff. If it's not, it will go here. But whatever happens, you want to remove the key for answer and then display the next question. So you need to then put in the thing for the next question. So if the guy clicks on next question, it goes into this room here for the question. And then again, if there are more questions to be asked, you will display. And if it's not, it says you've come to the end of the quiz. And then it'll just clear all the keys so that you don't have the keys for answer or question anymore. Okay, so I hope that is clear enough. Right, the rest of the stuff is just to support all of these things. It shouldn't be too hard to figure out what it's doing. Okay, now there is a little thing which is open. Let's say we want to have another quiz. Let's say I've got another quiz here. Let's say questions 2. Okay, so maybe let's try a new one. Let's say I say questions 2. I should never do this because you should always name it, give your names something that's meaningful, not 1, 2. Maybe I call it questions food. Okay, and then this one here, I call it questions countries. Questions country. Okay. And then here I need to make a change to this one, obviously, to call it questions country. And I can have another one called questions food, right? All right. And let's go back to the food one. Oops, let's close it out. Okay, so this quiz, we're going to call it food. And what is a durian? What? A tool. A fruit. Right, something like that. And then the triple thing out there. And then let's say how many in a bowl of so let's say something like 100 calories, 1,000 calories, let's say, I don't know, 10,000 calories, right? Okay, and you can add more questions, right? So I'm just going to demonstrate this with these two. And let's close this up. Now, so all we need to do to just flip that is to use, to change this. Okay. So let's say you want to ask the user, which quiz do you want? Okay. So at the very start, we can we can say, for example, let's say if it's countries, then do something. All right, so let's say it's countries. We just select the countries quiz, and if it's not, that's one way of doing it at least. Food quiz. Okay, so this is the simplest way of doing it. So let's just publish it. Be lazy and publish. Okay, so if I select food, right, I get the food. Let's say it's a fruit. Next question. Let's see, I see 100. Obviously not. Okay, it comes to the end. All right. So I hope that should be fairly clear. So one last remaining thing before I just finish this thing off, and that is, suppose I want to customize the look and feel of it. So right now it doesn't look great. If I click on this again, I click on, let's say, country, right? What's the country? Oh, countries. Okay, you can see here, I don't like this thing sticking up like that. I want this, let's say, Q1, all right, colon, what is the capital city of Malaysia, right? How do I change that? Okay, so that's where, so this stuff, okay, is formatted for you in two places. The first one is called format question, and these individual answers here are formatted in something called format answer. All right, so if you go here again to our docs, you'll find there is format answer and format question. There are samples for both. Okay, it's actually very close to the default stuff that you have. So let's select this guy here, format question. So I'm just going to just leave the answers formatted as they are right now, but I want to change the rest of this stuff, how it's formatted, right? Okay. So what I do is I just copy that part out, and I can dump this anywhere I like, and maybe here. Okay. And you can see here, this is actually, if you need to know a bit of HTML. Okay. So format question takes in two things, a message, which is the question itself, and N, which is the question number. All right. So this part here is actually quite verbose and long, and actually formats the question number. All right. So these two things are bound to a context variable called message, MSG, and num for message and number. And so I don't need all this other junk. I just want to just get this part out like that, and maybe just put it out here like a Q, with a number there, maybe, I don't know, a colon like that. Okay, or a dot, and I want it bold, so maybe I put a B for bold. Okay, and right, and then I want to delete this stuff here, which is the H5, which is the circle that you saw containing the number. Okay, so if I have something like this, and I just republish the quiz. Okay, this will be picked up immediately, and if I say something like Addis Ababa, it'll say no. But the next question, oh, it didn't pick it up, sorry. Famous last words. Publish again. Food. Oops. Why is that? Did I make a mistake somewhere here? Oh, my bad. This has to be done before. No, actually, it should be fine. Did I make any mistake? Oh, yeah. So this has to be defined before questions country and questions food. So I need to just move this thing up. Okay. Because questions country and questions food will use the function called format question. And just now what I did was I had this thing down here. So it was redefined after it's used, right? So after it's used, it's used. So of course you don't get any change. So if I move this up like that, it should work. I shall publish now. right? But on food, we should see a change. You can see this like Q1, what is a durian? Okay. And in a similar way, you can also change how these answers are displayed, right? By using the other one, which is format answer. Okay. Format answer. Right. Very similar, but it doesn't have a question answer number. It just has the answer itself. And then you just want to format it. And you must use this submit button, a submit word, so that you can generate the JavaScript to do the submission of the answer when the thing is being clicked. So there's a sample out here. You can just copy this and you can just amend it yourself if you like. Okay. So I hope that part is clear. Any questions at this stage? You'd have to unmute yourself and speak. This is very hard for me to.
Oh, I'm okay.
Yep, Ray. Okay, Ray.
I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay, Roy. Okay. All right. So then, in that case, we will just move on to the next bit, which is a little more complicated. Okay, but not that complicated, I think. All right. So it's called form generation. All right. So the idea is that you can actually generate forms. So this is actually code, Smojo code, writing other Smojo code so that to make the work simpler for you, right? That's what it's all about. And it's really to make the long forms easy and neat. It's an early release, so of course your feedback is still needed. And there's an additional UI, which I'll talk about in Smojo/chat/fill. Okay. So how you use Smojo/chat/formgen is first, you need to define the forms separately. And usually for forms, so what's a form? Form is where you want to collect data from the user, right? Let's say here's name or address or other things, right? Email address, etc. Or maybe it's an order taking. Let's say you want their orders, right, for certain things. So let's say they're trying to submit some information, right? So if it's just one thing that you can collect, it's fairly straightforward. You don't have to use the forms for that. But I think honestly, if it's two or more, I think you want to use the form gen. It's very convenient. Okay. So the idea is that you have to define the forms separately in a new folder called forms, right? You write your forms out there and call them, label them appropriately. Okay. And then you got to run the form. So you don't publish it, you just run the form itself. And that will create a new, what is it called, topic for you. All right. And this is an auto-generated piece of code. I'll come to this shortly. And then the idea is that you want to include that auto-generated piece of code in some parent topic to support the pre and post processing of the form itself. And then finally publish your bot as normal. Okay. So I'm going to demo two things, not just the form gen, but an enhancement for what I call filler or fill. All right. So what this does is that as the form is being filled, it gives the user some visual feedback of where they are, right, with dots or squares and so on, right? So you'll see this shortly. So just stop the share. All right, so let's go back here again. So this one is just form gen. Let's just try this first. Okay, so there are a few things that you need to take a note of. All right, this is there's a simple, simple sample out here for you. Let me just copy all of this stuff across. So this is a simple form, and it collects the data and puts it under a hash called registration details. Okay, and the first thing that triggers the form is register me. So when the user selects or presses a button called register me, it goes here. Okay, and it collects just 3 pieces of information. in sequence. So the first one is the seller name, the seller mobile, the seller email, and then of course it says at the last of all, it will give you a message saying registration is complete and display a menu button. Okay, and there's some additional actions that you can take here as well. So in this case, the details are being maybe sent through some email. Now, sent through email to, let's say, to for post processing or for to admin staff and so on. Now, this word, of course, doesn't exist. I mean, you can send emails, but only in the premium version of this thing, because you want to prevent spam, right? But then you want to just call in FormGen to generate this form automatically in this file here, right? So let's just put this all together. It looks, I know it's a little complicated, but let me just copy this. And what I'll do is, this is a form, so I want to just separate this out from the rest of my code. So I will create a folder here called forms, right? Because they're not really, chatbot topics, right? So I'm just going to put it into here. And I'll call this registration form, right? Right. So I'm just calling it .form just to make sure that people know it's a form. Okay. The extension doesn't really mean anything at all. And I'm going to delete the action because it's really not needed out here. And of course, since it didn't exist. And here I need to supply the full path, all right, to this thing. So I'm going to call it registration form. I need to supply the full path. Now the full path is from the very start. So it's all of this stuff, topics, and then wherever it lands in, right? So this thing here, I need this part here. It's going to be called, oops, something like that. Okay, let's type it in then. And collection. Okay. So I've got the full path, and the generated form will go into this file. All right. So what I need to do now is just to click on run. So that's step number 2. To run the form, it says OK. All right. If I go to the topics folder now, because the file is being saved under topics registration form, you can see out here there is a topics registration form. And all of this code is auto-generated. Okay, it's a sequence of rooms where the system checks and moves the user into the various rooms depending on their response. And here there's some error checking as well, optionally error checking that you can put in to ensure that the user is doing the right thing. Okay. All right. The other thing to notice is that I've got Q1, Q2, Q3, and so on. And how does this come from? If you look here, this symbol here, $C $, is actually a template placeholder where the system will just plonk in the question number. Okay. So if you look at the generated form, what's happening here is that at each time there's a B here, each B, it is taking like the seller name and saving it in registration details. So you need to have a mem called registration details. It needs to exist already. So this is the enclosing form, all right, which I talk about, the parent form that we want to talk about. Okay. So let me just close this generated form. You should never edit this thing here, because if you accidentally press the play button on this side here, it will completely recreate this entire thing. If you look at the date here, 1302 UTC, right? If I press this again, that date will change. If I close this up, open up again, it will change. You can see 1304 UTC, right? So all of this stuff was just clobbered and just redone from scratch. Okay, so let's use this form, and let's show you how to do that. So the first thing I need to create is the parent registration form itself. So let's call it register. Okay. And this one needs to contain the mem. I call the mem registration details, right? So this is the name here. Okay. I'll save that. And then you can just include the, what is it called again? Registration form. Okay. And if you want to have any post-processing stuff or any other things, you can have it here as well. Okay. All right. So let's include this here. Anywhere here you like, include. Okay, let's publish this. Now, if you type in register me, it should go into the form itself. So let's try this. Okay, so you can see Q1, what is your name? Arnold. All right, Q2, handphone number, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Now, this is part is interesting. Email address, if I say some rubbish, it'll say an invalid response, please try again, because it's actually checking the email address, whether it's a email address or not, because you look at the form here, it says :email. All right, so there are 3 fields. The first field is what the data item is called. The second field is the question itself to be posed to the user. There's a third optional field for the constraint that you want to impose, right? And say, oops, not something like that, right? And you can even customize the error message as well with this system. Okay, so in this case here, oops, not here. Let's try abc@gmail.com. And it says fine. Oop. Well, if it doesn't say that, why is that? So if it flicks out like this, it means that it doesn't know what the thing is. It's because I didn't include the topics, the email topic. .m. Okay, this kind of checking is more powerful when you know how to write something called programmatic types. All right, so email is a programmatic type. If you go to email.m, this is a programmatic type. It converts whatever string it sees into a lowercase, and then it runs what's called a regular expression to check and see whether this email is, I know it looks very long, it's complex, and it checks whether it's a valid email or not. Okay, and last of all, you mark this word. It must begin with an with an @ symbol, and then you mark it with a /@ and then this becomes a new type, right? Which you can use in your code, just like how I've done. If you look at this form here, you can see here the Q email @ so this actually checks for the email address. Now let's just publish this again, because it wouldn't have worked without the import here from email. So let's just publish this again and try this again. All right, so Arnold. Okay, and it says registration complete, then click on the menu. All right, of course, nothing happens here, it says IDK. All right, And this is the final thing that you display on the last. What was it again? On last. Now, if you need something else to happen as a side effect, like at the very last part where the form is being displayed, then you can actually show that as well, right? Another way of doing this is to just display the your data, right? And you can format this nicely if you want to, but I'm just going to just dump it, right? So it's just called registration details. And this is a hash. So I'm going to just do a concat to the hash to convert it into a string, and that should work. So if I publish this again, one last time. That's odd. Oh, nothing happened because I didn't run the form, right? So if I ran the form here, look at the form right now as it stands. Okay. At the very last thing, all it does is just do that, right? But if I go back to the form here, this form here, and I run it, then if I go back to this registration form, oops, not this one, you can see it does something else here. It's different. Okay. So each time you change the registration form, you do run it. Otherwise, the changes won't be picked up by your bot. Okay, so let's close this up and try again. Register me. And there you go. Okay, so this is the textual representation of the hash in which the data is stored. You can see that the email, seller email is this, the seller mobile is this, and the seller name is this. Okay, you can just use your normal hashes stuff to retrieve the information that you need. Okay, so this is useful when you put it in conjunction with things like emails or databases or other things that you want to put in. Okay, I hope that. Any questions here?
So how do we retrieve the form, the data? We need to store it in somewhere, right?
You can store it either in the, depends on where you want to send it to. You could send it, for example, you could use API and then serialize the form and then send it over to your own servers. That's one way of doing it. Or you could store it into a database that we'll be discussing on the 8th of Feb when we meet up again. Or you could store it into a, what is it called, a persistence hash, so that his details are being stored there. There are many places where you can store this stuff, or an email also. Okay.
Or let's say one question I have is, with this registration form, if we are using it for registering new user, and maybe we want to have some authentication.
Yep.
So this allow the capture of this some kind of password or user ID inside.
You can, but if you want to do user authentication, yes, you can do this in conjunction, like I said before, in conjunction with a database. So you do need still a database at the back end to actually retrieve his actual passwords and so on. And that will be covering again on the 8th of Feb. It's a more involved topic. So I want to go, spend the entire.
Yeah. I just trying to understand. So it involves the database also. Yeah.
It does involve a database. It really depends on what you're using this thing for. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
is this better as compared to logging? That's a good question, actually. So the problem with logging is that it is actually it can only log a limited amount of characters, right? So you can actually collect the data here and then log it if you want to. All right. So I could, for example, change this and make it do some kind of logging for me if I wanted to. So or you could, but the problem with logs is that each line is limited to just 128 characters. So it's not long enough, I think, for most longer data sets, right, or longer records. Right. So logging is really mainly meant for debugging and for debugging and some very basic data collection, but it's not good enough for anything else. For any kind of complicated stuff, you need to use the database that we're talking about. Yes, it will be useful with database. In fact, that's what we use it for ourselves. So right now we're actually conducting a very large program in Indonesia, and it's involving people who are selling stuff and people who are trying to build chatbots for them. So we've got like about, I think, 200 or 300 or 400 sales companies who want to sell their wares using these chatbots in Indonesia. So right now we've got about 1,000 over people like yourselves previously who wanted to come and join the boot camp to learn how to do this stuff, and they will be using some of these forms to collect data and to actually store it into a database. So I will show you how to use the databasing. I think that's really become much more important now, since we've got the cameras, we've got the image up. We also have planned also these image uploads where you can actually upload an image from your computer and so on. And we'll be showing you how to use that when we meet next in early Feb, after Chinese New Year. Okay, any other questions? Nope, all good? Cool. Right, so I will see you after Chinese New Year, and Kong Si Fa Chai to all of you.
Yeah, same to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Stay safe, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.